do you want to work on today? Anybody?
What did y'all read through in class on Thursday?
I have no idea. Anybody? What did we do on Thursday?
We did all of it, except we did the Psalm in smaller groups. But we went through all of the Bible story as a class.
That's true. I'm not lying.
We only spent we only spent like 20 minutes on Psalm 1 on Thursday.
Let's do Psalm 1 then.
All right. Seems like a good plan. Yeah, we worked through the Bible story pretty thoroughly. We'll read through it quickly tomorrow, but we'll spend most of our time on Psalm 1 looking at how poetry works in Hebrew. So we might as well do Psalm 1. Let's see. Whole screen. And go to accordance. We should have a little accordance lesson.
Yeah.
All of you have accordance, so it might not be the most useful. You're gonna have to get it someday. Look at that. All right, so
Accordance forever.
what was that, Alex?
You can't hide from accordance forever.
It's true. As much as you might want to. That happened.
Run, but you
So,
can't hide.
all right, we got 6 verses. There are 4 of you. So, time to go around. Let's start off with Katie because, a little bit.
Cool. Ashrei Ha'ish Asher Lo Halak Ba'itzat Rishaim Ubederek HaTaish Lo Amad Ubamoshav Leitzim Lo Yashav.
All right, say this word again for me.
Chataim.
There you go.
There we go.
Chaim. Tov ma'od. What does it mean?
It means happy or blessed is the man who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked, or in the way of the sinner, and in the way of the sinner does not stand, and in the dwelling place of the scoffers does not dwell.
All right, very good. This whole this first clause here is a bit of a challenge. Tell me why you translated it the way that you did.
Just the way, like, Ashrei, I remember that meaning happy. I remember learning that in my brain once upon a time. And I see that is bound in the suffix, or that the last part of the word. So I would just think to say like happy is the man, or like the man is happy guy, happy dude.
Yeah. So normally we will say happy and then we'll put is and then say the man, as if the man is the subject of the verb and the happiness is what he is, as if this were stated or something. But this is bound, so technically this is the happiness of the man, or even better, the happy man is the one who does not walk in the counsel of the wicked. So normally in English, this phrase gets broken apart, but like you say, Katie, it's bound. So it's best that we keep it together if we can in our English translation. So the happy man is the one who does not walk. All the rest of it's pretty straightforward. Whole bunch of bound nouns. So any thoughts on this clause other than the beginning of it, or on the beginning of it? Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. All right, let's go. Who is next? Jonah, verse 2.
All right. Ki im b'torat Adonai chefso Uvatorato Yehke Yomam Valaila.
Toast mode.
But in the law of the Lord is his delight, and on his law he meditates by day and by night.
All right, very good. Let's see. So this is a little more complicated than the previous clause. Key M is a bit of a challenge. You just really have to memorize its options because individually they mean key means one thing and M means a whole different thing, but together they mean but or therefore or however or something like that. So their individual meanings don't like add together to produce the meaning that we come up with. It's a whole different thing. So you just got to memorize that. Then we have these prepositional phrases that are probably because of these grammatical terms, but we lack a verb. So that is one major characteristic of Hebrew poetry is missing verbs, missing grammatical elements of sentences, different types of word order that we're not used to. But that's just the nature of poetry, really, generally speaking, anyways. You said meditate for this. So I'd like to look at the other possible meanings to it just to see when we think of meditate, what do we normally think of? Like what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Quiet time.
Yeah. So sitting quietly, kind of pondering the universe, or here pondering over the Torah. But in Hebrew, this specific word at least does mean to meditate, but that tends to include, like you see in the instant details box on my screen, some sort of vocalization of what you're meditating on. So some speaking, some moaning, or some kind of mumbling through it. So oftentimes when we see, or if you ever see a Hebrew person doing their prayers, they will very quietly utter out their prayers. So they're doing it for themselves. Nobody else can really hear it, but it's always vocalized. That meditation is always vocalized out loud.
Okay.
So I learned this word. We read through this with Roger, and he explained the word Haggah as like, it's almost onomatopoetic. So it's like Haggah, 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 Haggah. So like this mumbling, uttering noise, which I thought was really helpful.
So was he suggesting that it was a noise that wasn't related to the words on the page?
No, I mean, it was related to like like moaning or meditating.
Yeah.
Speaking the Torah.
Okay, because I think it can mean several things. I think one, it can mean just a moaning, and there the Haggah sound may be onomatopoetic, where the moaning sounds like Haggah, deep kind of guttural sort of moan while we meditate, similar to what, the Om kind of meditation. But I think here it's related to the noises that we make when we meditate on the Torah as we read it out loud quietly to ourselves, right? We're making, like you were saying, kind of this mumbling, the sound that comes out that most people are just going to hear as babbling. But if you listen very closely, you'd recognize it as just the Torah being read out very quietly. So, I think that has some significance. Of course, this is telling the reader to be very close to the Torah day and night. So all the time you should be, having the Torah inside you. But how that meditation took place in the ancient world is really highlighted by this particular word. All right, any other thoughts on that verse? All right, Alex, verse 3.
V'haya ka'et ketz shatu al palgei mayim asher piryo yiten ba'ito v'alehu v'alehu. Lo Yibol V'kol Asher Ya'aseh Yatz Licha.
Yatzliach. You don't see it here in accordance because for whatever reason they aren't able to program a furtive patak. But Hebrew word cannot end with a vowel. If you look in your Hebrew Bible, this patak is shifted over underneath the leg of het. And that reminds us that it is pronounced with the a vowel first and then the het, as opposed to ha, it's ach. So it's tricky in accordance because we don't get that furtive patak signal in your actual printed Bible. It'll always be that way. Very good. How did you translate this stuff?
Okay, and he is as a tree planted. I don't really get that word, but upon streams of water, which, and that refers to he, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
His fruit, its fruit, he gives in his time. And his leaves?
Yeah, so now we got to figure out, to go back to the previous assumption, who is the, is it referring to this man that we've been talking about, or is it referring to the tree that the man is?
It's referring to a tree.
Yeah. So the tree is planted by the water, and the tree's fruit gives it, or the tree gives its fruit in its time, and its leaves, go ahead from there.
Will not wither.
Mm-hmm.
And everything which he does, he will do. He prospers.
That's right. Good. So now our subject has changed. So you did that very well. All right. Good. So you said you had an issue with this word. What was going on with this word that was challenging?
I guess I don't understand the part of speech it is.
All right.
Is it a participle?
It's called passive participle. So this a, u vowel is the only reason why we know that is called passive participle. And that's just something that we have to memorize. We just learned participles recently, and the call passive is actually pretty rare, but so that's what it is. So the tree is a planted one. So that's normally how I translate participles, is one who has been planted upon the stream of water.
Okay.
Let's see here. Anything else? So how about this Yatzliach? What do we parse that out?
Imperfect third person masculine singular.
Mm-hmm. What binyanim?
Not call.
Not call.
Hifl.
That's right. Good. And why'd you make that guess?
Because I eliminated other ones.
All right. Process of deduction here. We got one sign of the hifil here, this hirik yod. Also the patak under the prefix of the imperfect sign of the hifil. But that hirik yod is the one thing that's going to stand out. Would tell us it's the hifil. So we got two verbs in a row. How are we going to deal with that syntactically? All of which he does. It prospers. He prospers. What do we think about these two verbs in a row?
Could have been like in all that he does, like an adverbial.
Yeah, good.
Subjects could be different.
So the subjects could be different. And I think with your comment about the adverbial, we have to decide which one is the head verb. Is this the head verb of the clause, or is it this verb? So all which he does is prosperous. All the stuff that he does, all that stuff is prosperous, or he is prosperous in all that he does. I mean, meaning wise, they're essentially the same, I suppose, but trying to figure out which one is the head verb is a bit of a challenge here. I'm leaning towards this one being the head verb, because I think that you're right that this is functioning adverbially, this whole kind of phrase right here. But a bit of a challenge there. Let's see who else is with us. Lindy, verse 4.
Okay. So lo ken ha rashaim.
That's going to be hor rashaim. That's going to be an O vowel there.
Ki ka mitz. Asher. Tidfenu.
Tidfenu. The dalet's doubled, so we pronounce it twice. Tidfenu.
Tidfenu. Ruach.
Ruach tov.
Ruach. Okay, so I couldn't really figure out the first part because, to my knowledge, that's no, yes, the wicked.
Yeah. So this is going to be thus here. So not thus the wicked.
So thus the wicked are like chaff, which are blown in the wind.
Yeah, so this first phrase probably not so actually, or no, I told you one thing and now I want to change it because not so the wicked. Who or that. How do you translate the rest of this?
So the wicked, I said who are like chaff blown in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was just trying to make sense of it. Yeah, no.
So these three prepositions in a row are a bit of a challenge. Anybody come up with a good translation of im and ki together? Yeah. Because, let's see here, what are we going to do with this? I think this is similar to ki im in that the im plus the ki over here, or plus the kaf together down here don't like add up to make something together, but they have a new meaning. But that new meaning is escaping me at this moment. Because like chaff, so I think the im part just gets ignored essentially, like chaff who is blown away by the wind. I'm going to have to check up ki im, try to get a better understanding of what's going on there. Not so the wicked, who are like chaff, blown away by the wind.
Yeah, I just found myself in this song kind of tossing out words.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. Yeah.
We got ki im, and then the kaf, and then a share shows up as well. Yeah. And then over here, lo kain. I mean, how many actual words do we have that aren't grammatical terms? So it's a bit of a challenge to translate this syntactically because I think we have 3 separate clauses, or 4 separate clauses. No, 3. Not so the wicked, and then who are like chaff is a subordinate clause to the wicked here. Oh, that can't be right. Not so the wicked. So this is a adjectival phrase modifying rashaim, the wicked ones, who are like chaff, and then the chaff is modified by this clause here, which is blown away by the wind.
I think that's right.
Suffix, verb masculine singular with an energetic noon. I was going to ask you about this suffix there. Tidfenu. What does nu normally tell us? What is that normally signifying when you see nu? Think of a knock nu.
So third.
Yeah, first common plural.
That's right. First common plural is normally, when we think of a new ending, we think first common plural. But that is not what this is. It's a third masculine singular suffix. And they're arguing it's just like this noon that's put in there for emphasis. But I actually think that noon is put in there because if we didn't have the noon, then it would not look like a suffix at all. To the fu, if there's no noon there, then it would be what, second or third common plural, the Tav and the Shurik there. So I think the noon is necessary to help us know that this is a suffix. But to realize that it's a third masculine singular suffix is a bit of a problem for us, I think. Well, I'm struggling through this just as much as anybody else, it looks like. What questions or comments do you have on verse 4? Does it make sense when you read through it? You know what it's trying to say? All right. Julie, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. We can't see you.
That's probably good.
You don't have to turn it on the screen, but I just didn't know if you're there. So verse 5.
Okay. Alkane lo yikmu
Yakumu.
Yakumu Roshaim Bamish Pet Vahataim Ba'adat Zadayakim. Zadayakim.
So this is a tzade, so not a Z sound, but it's tzadi.
Za. So it's like a cheesy. I mean, I know it's cheesy, but I don't know how to pronounce that.
I know it's hard. So it's like cats. When you say cats, the TS at the end of cats.
Sa.
Yeah, so it's better with an S sound, but try to get a T at the beginning of it. So I put my tongue on my teeth, the front of my teeth, T, and then push it through with an S sound. T.
Okay. Sadiqim. Okay. All right. And that says, oh my gosh, I haven't been looking at this. Thus, so, not, oh my gosh, what is that? Of the wicked. Something of the, not the, Kumu.
You know Kum? Anybody?
No Kum.
To rise up.
Stand.
Yeah.
To rise up and stand up.
Yeah. Oh, to stand. Okay. Okay, but the wicked will not stand. No standing will the wicked in the judgment. And the sinners in...
That one's a new vocab word.
Yeah.
In the congregation, I keep forgetting that one. In the congregation of the righteous.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's try that again. So we've had the wicked blowing in the wind. And so, I guess that just means and so, right? Upon
yeah, and so
this, or therefore, therefore the wicked will not stand in judgment, and sinners will not be in the congregation of the righteous.
That's right.
Awesome.
So this phrase does not have a verb. What verb do we need to supply? We don't need to add one in because it's poetry, and we probably shouldn't just be adding a bunch of words, but what verb is implied in this phrase?
Haya.
So if we said haya and the wicked are in the...
Or the sinners, or, well, they're not in the...
Yeah, so it's...
I mean, obviously, or, yeah, lo haya.
So we could say lo haya, and the sinners are not in the congregation of the righteous. So we're borrowing the lo from over here. But what if we also borrowed yakumu? Right? And the sinners do not stand. Because it's a parallelism, it's just building off of this one. Right?
Okay. Right.
So,
But you wouldn't really translate it both like not standing or they won't stand.
no, I'm not. Yeah, exactly. I'm not suggesting that we translate it any different, but just that we understand.
And what they're talking, what they might be using. Yeah, that phrase.
Yeah. So in Hebrew, oftentimes pieces from the first. What is that called in poetry? I can't remember.
Verse in the first stanza or the
Stanza,
first?
there you go. In the first, is that right? Stanza? Is this one stanza and this second stanza?
No, it's a
That's-
line. I don't know.
Yeah.
The first couplet, the first. I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. Whatever that is. Okay. So the second one will often borrow from the first one, right? So it
Okay.
won't repeat the same verbs just because in poetry, oftentimes we're trying to use the least amount of words to make the point we're trying to make. So we just leave out as whatever we can. In this particular instance, this has been left out and it's assumed over here. Again, in our translation, we're not going to add it back in, but we just know that it's assumed. All right, did everybody get a chance to go? All right, then Katie's going to still make up for her sin. She's in purgatory for a while. So verse 6.
Cool. Ki yodea Adonai Derek Tzadikim V'derek Rishaim Toved.
Obeyed. Good.
Obeyed. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, and the way of the wicked will perish.
Yeah, good. Parse Toved.
Toved, imperfect. Well, Toved. Yeah, I want to say it's third feminine imperfect, third feminine singular imperfect. Derek, is Derek a feminine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe Derek is, well, according to saying it's both, but I believe it's feminine here. So that's why we have the feminine verb.
Yeah. Call.
Good. Yeah. So call. So just I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but it's weak. So that's why we have some different vowels going on here. But good. Let's see here. All right. That's Psalm 1. I'm curious, as you read through this in Hebrew, what your thoughts are on the truth of this verb, of this chapter. What is it claiming, and do you find it to be true in your world?
It's claiming that the righteous prosper and the wicked don't,
Damn right.
which is not always true.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's quite obvious, I think, to all of us that this is not always true. What do you think the ancient readers would have thought about this sort of wisdom?
I think it was.
Go ahead.
I think it was probably like a necessary, hopeful message because there's something about wickedness and being a sinner that kind of overpowers righteousness. And a lot of times, like the person that's the loudest and the is usually the wicked one that's being mean to everyone. So it's almost like law of nature: the righteous prosper, the wicked will not meet good ends.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like that.
I like the idea that it's a message of hope, right? It's not claiming, or maybe, but and if it's a message of hope, then it's saying, this is what we can hope for, that at the end of the day, the righteous are going to prosper and the wicked will perish, right? Other thoughts on that?
Well, I thought of it a little bit differently after reading this. That there's so much emphasis on the Torah, on reading the law, meditating on the law, that it made me think about if you were beginning to really think about what God wanted, that you will probably look at different things and value different things. And so you will be prosperous because God wants those things to be prosperous. I mean, you may not be successful financially, but you would be successful in other ways because you are connecting to something much larger than what we see and what our world is valuing. And so for me, I thought this was kind of interesting and challenging to think about how much I personally am focused on the law or focusing on, just what are the values that I'm really focused on, and am I always making those front and center in my life? And that might be why I have unhappiness, if I do have unhappiness.
Yeah. So it's not just saying that good things happen to good people, but it's reflecting on this meditating on the Torah. And like you're saying, this meditation may change what we try to do in life. Mm-hmm. Once we start doing and seeking after God's kingdoms and using, phrases from the New Testament, then we will be successful in that. And that's all that this person's going to do, because all they're doing is meditating day and night on the Torah. So all that they do is going to be successful. Maybe not their businesses, but their pursuit.
Well, it probably would be, if that's their business. If they felt that was a call, they probably would be, because they would see something in that. So, and then let's imagine someone suffering and going through something horrible, like a horrible ordeal, a medical concern. Even in that, you would begin to there's a hopeful message in that, that even in that, there was something to be gained from that experience that you don't understand, but you can trust that will be successful. Not necessarily meaning you won't ever die or you will be cured of everything, but that just living in this moment will be successful.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Any other thoughts? Anybody else? Go ahead, Alex.
I thought it would make more sense applying this to the Jewish community instead of to individuals, and the idea that the faithful among Israel will always exist, even though even some faithful Jewish individuals will strike bad luck, but that God is keeping and protecting and conserving that community. Mm-hmm. Also, this is the first psalm in a book of psalms which many of which do not fit this pattern, and so it's in tension with those, and it's something hoped for. Yeah, it's obviously not completely the case.
Yeah, good. You're making several points that I like. One, that as a community, God has promised this to the Hebrew people. That this is the blessing that God has promised, that they will prosper. As long as they're following the Torah, they're going to prosper, and everybody else will be punished if they're being wicked. So as a community, this does make more sense, right? But also this needs to be read within the context of the larger wisdom psalms that are not all promising, sunny days and happiness for every single righteous person. And just that even outside of the Psalms, we see books like Ecclesiastes and Job that serve as a balance to this sort of wisdom. Job is a clear indicator that this is not always true. So we need to understand it within that context. Cool.
Do you think it would make sense to read this psalm eschatologically?
All right, develop that a little bit.
Well, we have this image of the righteous as being planted, and their leaves won't wither, and it's kind of an image of constancy. Mm-hmm. And then the psalmist goes on to say, this isn't so for the wicked. Their leaves will wither; they'll be blown away by the wind. It's sort of there's a transitoriness about pursuing wickedness, in that, at the end of the day, at the end of the age, they will not prosper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. So when we look at this metaphor of being planted by streams of water, and this promise of success, of everything that this person does being successful. It seems like they're going to go through their life and their life's going to be perfect, right? They're just going to have everything. But I like where you're going, especially when we think about what this is, Bamishpat, the judgment, and then the congregation of the righteous. What are these? When are these happening? Is this the current congregation, the Jewish people, or is this looking forward to something else? And especially this one, when is this judgment? What is this judgment? So when is the success going to be taking place? That's a really good question. And then looking at this clause, or this verse at the end, their way will perish, right?
Can you talk a little bit about righteous, then what righteousness means, or the righteous verb here? I mean, I don't know if you know anything
This
more.
one here? Got it.
Oh, yeah, like the righteous, yeah. What does that mean exactly? We struggle with it in English.
Yeah, it's kind of a loaded term, isn't it? I'm trying to pull up my dictionary, but I broke it. I can't pull it up.
Okay.
Well, my understanding of righteousness is one who follows the Torah. I mean, just to be kind of obvious about it, I guess.
And then that would be in this congregation. So it's in the congregation of the righteous. So it's emphasis on the temple or on.
Well, and I think Jonah is hitting on something here, that this is, at the end of the day, there's the judgment. The day of the Lord is the judgment day. And I think that's what this clause is pointing to, that when God comes to judge the world, the righteous will not stand up, but there will be a group of righteous people who will prevail. Similar to what Alex is saying as well, that is the congregation that stands up together. But when is that all going to happen? Well, it's the day of the Lord. Someday in the future, these promises are going to be fulfilled. So this psalm definitely has some eschatological meaning, especially towards the end. If we read these verses back into the earlier verses, then it kind of flavors what the planting by the water means. It's hard for me, though, to decide if this is promising both a fruitful and successful life as well as a good judgment for the righteous person, for the happy, for the meditator of the Torah. I personally haven't yet decided what I think about that. But any other thoughts on this?
Is it possible that there's parallels between the righteous congregation and the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talks about? Would that be the same concept? Would they be similar concepts, or would they be completely different?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'd just be speculating at this point. So what do you all think? Speculate for me or with me. Who are these people? What is this talking about?
I feel like that might be reading more into it than this was written to be. Like what Roger said in Old Testament 2 on Monday about the inerrancy of Scripture, as far as like the truth of it being true as far as it was intended to be. And so I feel like I feel like that's a super cool idea, that like the congregation of the righteous, like that could be tied into this. But I feel like this is more, I feel like in this context, it's more of just like a poem. And I really like the eschatological idea of like, this is, and just this idea that this like this is an overture for the book of the Psalms, and that like it's not a prescriptive thing, but that this is the hope. This is something that they could speak into truth, something that they could look forward to. But I could definitely see where we could weave parallels like that into like the kingdom of heaven that Jesus talked about. But it's super cool to think about.
Yeah, good. Okay. Other thoughts? Anybody else?
Well, I would think that Jesus would definitely have this in mind and think that's what he had to be talking about. He would, I mean, I don't think he would have, I mean, I think he was so immersed in the Jewish culture that would have probably been his reference point, but he was just expanding the tent, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, maybe I have to think about that longer.
Yeah, so that's another way to look at it. I like what Katie's saying. First, we need to interpret this phrase within the psalm itself, but then to try to ponder what Jesus and other people in the Second Temple period would have thought about the kingdom of God and its relationship to the congregation of the righteous. Are they synonymous with one another? Or the congregation of the righteous, those people who enter into the kingdom of God? I think that's probably likely that they...
Well, they would have been that promise, those promised, part of the promise,
Mhm.
right? So, I mean, you would have identified, I would imagine, that you're part of the Abraham promise. And that's what Jesus kept, and definitely Paul focused on that. This promise continues. It's now changing.
Mhm.
So whether Jesus meant that, I don't know, but I would think that definitely Paul did.
Yeah.
He used specifically Abraham a lot.
Yeah, Abraham imagery's full up in Paul's writings. Cool, good. Any other thoughts on this psalm? All right. Let's see here. Then tomorrow we are going to take a translation quiz. There'll be a verse from the Babel story as well as this psalm that you'll need to translate. Turn in your worksheet with I asked you to do 4 interpretive elements that you need to talk about. We'll translate very closely through both the Babel story and the psalm one more time, and then we're going to do another chapter, maybe 2 chapters tomorrow of grammar. I'll try to get your new worksheet to you tomorrow, but it'll probably be Friday morning, just looking at how things are for the next couple of days. So that's where we're going. Any thoughts or questions before we're done for the day?
Well, I have a question that and it's more of a review need, I think.
All right.
And maybe I'm not sure just how to approach it, but in terms of the grammar and identifying like, oh yeah, it's a bound noun. I don't think until we do this, I'm really recognizing those things. So I almost need to review to be reminded XYZ or, I don't know if how I'm not sure how to address that. If I should just try to go through the book and get that down, or just think about words that, I kind of go through and circle words and then I forget to bring them up, in this class, or I can bring it tomorrow, but just working again with the Babel story. I think it was on the 3rd, just some of the, some things I'm not quite clear about and don't have that down, and definitely would probably not recognize that reading it through the first time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's look at some of the bound nouns in this psalm. But since it's 10 o'clock, those of you that need to get out of here, you're welcome to take off. So we'll see you all 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. Those of you that want to look at bound nouns, go ahead and hang out. First, I'll say hi to Luke. Luke, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Trying to just make whatever little portion I can.
Cool.
I thought it was still going.
Yeah, we normally end right around 10, but sometimes we have some questions that we want to chat about. So we're going to talk about bound nouns for a little bit. So the first thing I recommend that you do for bound nouns is to find the chart in your textbook. There's a chart that shows you bound nouns compared to the regular noun. You really just have to memorize that so you can look for the specific signs that you need to look for.
Okay.
But the first thing that you need to look for when you're trying to do bound nouns is 2 nouns in a row. So here we have, hold on a second, this is not technically a noun, but it's an interjection. So that's not the best of examples. Let's go down to here. So
And
this
is that why maybe it has the other dash there connecting them? So it's literally, you can see they're connected?
Yeah, I mean, this is more complicated, so it's, it's not too helpful for this conversation, but
Okay.
let's look at these two. So we have two nouns. We have stream, which is normally spelled peleg, and then we have mayim. So if you're looking at two nouns in a row, the first thing you assume is that they're bound. This marker here, this tzera yod, is the most common marker of a bound noun. This is the one that's going to really stand out to you. Whenever you see the tzera yod, you should think that it is very likely bound what follows it. So this is streams of water. And this is a masculine plural noun, streams of water. If we look up here, though, we have two nouns in a row, but we have a tav here. The reason there's a tav there is this is feminine singular. Normally, feminine singular nouns are spelled with a hey on the end, like Susa. But when it is bound, that hey goes away and we get a tav. Tav tells us that the two nouns are bound together. Here's another really good example. This one will make a lot of sense. Torah is normally spelled Torah with the hey at the end, but when it's the Torah of the Lord, you have the tav, and that tells us that it's the Torah of the Lord. All right. So we're looking for specific markers that are helping us know that two nouns are bound together. The tzera yod and the tav are the only ones that are actually helpful. If it is a third masculine singular noun, there's no marker that is consistent. And if it is a third feminine plural noun, there's really no marker that is consistent. So it's only in the masculine plural that we get the tzera yod, and the feminine singular that we get the tav, where we actually have clear signs of the bound. Otherwise, it's really just seeing two nouns in a row. So beyond that, there's not much more for us to look for when we're talking about bound nouns.
Yeah, I'm just finding that I don't approach this very grammatically, but that's just because maybe I'm not as interested in that. But so I'm struggling a little bit in terms of even the interpretation, other than just writing about what I think is interesting.
Yeah.
But to really break it down and even get more comfortable with the conjugation of verbs and seeing that. I don't know why. I guess it's just not as interesting to me, so I don't do it and practice it, in terms of what does it mean for me. But
at this point, what is interesting really is probably the most important thing, because after you're done with Hebrew, you're not going to be parsing verbs unless you're interested in it. Part of my job is to convince you that it is important to know how to do it. So that's part of this whole term, is that we look at parsing of verbs and the different grammatical elements, and to realize how understanding that grammar will deepen our understanding of the text. But beyond that, you really need to spend your time doing what is most interesting for you.
In that verb, or in the, when we were talking about everything they do prospers, so that's, what would that be, a verb? And you're not sure which verb is the main verb. And is that because they both look so similar and in their forms? Or why or you think it's the prosper is the main verb?
I think it prosper is the main verb because ya'aseh is connected with this maketh, with this line to asher, all which they do seems to be the subject of yatzliah.
Being prosperous. Okay. So
all which they do is prosperous, or this is actually hifil, is caused to be prosperous. So it's not that it seems that God causes it to be prosperous. I think that's what this is implying. But so I think all which they do is actually the subject of yatzliah.
It's not, you couldn't translate it will prosper, right? Because
you could. All which he does, all which he does will be prosperous. All which he will do. Both of these are imperfect, so they probably should be translated with the future tense. So all which he will do, it will be prosperous.
Okay.
It's another way to go at that. Let's see what some of our translators do for us here. And all that they do. Why would you say they? Singular.
They have a lot of days up here, don't they?
Well, it's talking about. I don't know who they is.
And this is singular, the haya even, right?
Well, it's all going back to this. It's all happy are those, but I mean it's the man. Happy is the person who. That's really interesting that they did that. But anyways, they're saying in all that they do, they prosper.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I'll think about more and keep trying to hang on in there.
All right, cool. All right, Julie, thanks. Luke,
Yeah.
do you have any questions about the readings or translations?
I don't really have anything like burning. I've been studying them on my own like every day, so there's nothing that I haven't been able to manage to translate. I can say that much.
Cool, that's good.
Yeah, every now and then, like, there are a few verses, and I think this is normal, that are just like particularly challenging in both Genesis 11 and in Psalm 1. But like with enough time, I can still like figure it out,
Good. Yeah, we were struggling with verse 4, which is, I think, the most challenging of these 6 verses. Probably as you were going through it, kind of we're getting stuck here, but it's good that you're able to piece it together. Although this one verse probably took more time than all the other ones put together. So
Sure.
All right. Cool. Well, that's good. If there's nothing else, I'll let you go. You can watch the beginning of the recording if you like.
Yeah, totally. And then I'll send you an email or something like that.
We're going to keep track of that.
Yeah.
Just so that we're all earning our grades. But it's going to take me a while to post it. It's got a process, and then I got to upload it, and it'll probably be an hour or 2 before it all gets done. But
Okay, yeah, for sure. I'm pretty much done for the day, so I'll just keep an eye on it.
Cool. All right. Cool. Well, we will see you tomorrow.
All right, sounds good.
Cool. Later.
All right, bye.